Not every moment deserves your voice. Not every attack requires a defense. The Stoics understood something that the modern world often forgets. Silence is not emptiness. It's power. It's the space between impulse and wisdom. It's the calm that holds the line when words would only add fuel to chaos. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, knew that the man who can remain silent in the right moments holds more strength than the one who always speaks. Because silence isn't passive, it's intentional. It's an act of self-control, of presence, of clarity. It's a refusal to let the outside world dictate your inner state. In this episode, we'll explore 9 specific moments where silence becomes your greatest tool, where choosing not to speak is the highest form of wisdom and the clearest sign of mastery. From unfair criticism to grief, from anger to insult, you'll discover how stillness isn't retreat, it's restraint with purpose. If you're ready to train the kind of strength that doesn't always need to be heard to be felt, subscribe to Stoic Reflections, like this video to affirm your commitment to discipline, and comment below. In which of these situations will you begin practicing powerful silence today? The less you need to say, the more control you truly have. Let's begin. 1. When being criticized unfairly. When someone attacks you unfairly, twisting facts, questioning your character, spreading distortions you know are false, the natural urge is to defend yourself, to correct them, to speak loud enough to drown out the lie. But the Stoic knows better. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself often, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy, and nothing demonstrates that more clearly than silence in the face of unfair criticism. Because silence doesn't mean surrender, it means mastery. To be silent when unjustly criticized is not weakness, it's control. It's the refusal to let someone else's chaos dictate your clarity. When you speak in defense of something you know is already false, you give it energy. You give it life. You signal that it's worth arguing over. But when you remain calm, unmoved, unshaken, you shift the weight of the moment. Your character speaks louder than your voice ever could. This doesn't mean you ignore truth or let injustice go unanswered forever. It means you know the timing and the tone that real strength requires. You know that the moment you speak from emotion, especially from a place of hurt, you risk saying what cannot be taken back. You risk stooping to the level of those who don't act from principle. And the Stoic never meets ignorance on its own terms. He meets it with stillness, with dignity. Unfair criticism often reveals more about the critic than the target. It's rooted in projection, fear, insecurity. The Stoic sees that clearly. He doesn't waste energy trying to correct every misperception or chase every shadow. He focuses instead on what's within his control, his conduct, his consistency, his values. Because over time, it's not your defense that clears your name, it's your behavior, it's your patience, it's the quiet confidence of someone who has nothing to prove. And there's another truth the Stoic remembers. Those who know you don't need your defense, and those who believe the lie won't care about your explanation. So why spend your strength trying to manage perceptions you don't control? Why feed a fire that silence could starve? Hold your ground. Speak only when it serves your values, not your ego. Let your life, not your words, refute the false. This discipline is difficult. It requires inner stillness, emotional clarity, and trust, not in the world, but in your own alignment. But the reward is peace, not the peace of avoidance, but the peace of integrity. And the man who can meet unfair judgment with composure becomes something rare, untouchable, not because he fights every voice, but because he rises above them all. That's the power of silence. Not absence, but presence. Not fear, but command. Not reaction, but respect. For yourself, for truth, for the strength that needs no performance to be real. 2. In the presence of boasting. Ego loves to be fed, and boasting is its loudest hunger cry. Whether it's in a meeting, a conversation, or social media, you'll inevitably encounter people who inflate their image, parade their achievements, and speak not to connect but to dominate. The temptation in these moments is to match their energy, to assert yourself, to prove you're just as capable, if not more. But the Stoic chooses a different path. He doesn't meet ego with ego. He meets it with silence. Marcus Aurelius, despite being emperor, reminded himself to remain humble, to avoid being impressed by the sound of his own voice, because boasting reveals more than confidence. It often masks insecurity. It seeks validation, not truth. And when you answer it with your own self-promotion, you step into the same trap, the trap of comparison, of pride, of chasing approval. The Stoic avoids this. He knows that quiet confidence carries more weight than loud self-advertising. When someone brags about their success, their wealth, their intelligence, the Stoic doesn't interrupt. He doesn't challenge. He doesn't try to outshine. He simply listens, calmly, without being pulled into the performance. Because silence here isn't passivity, it's power. It signals that you don't need to prove yourself, that your worth is not up for public display, that your value isn't dependent on being seen or praised. This form of silence does something subtle but powerful. It creates contrast. While others speak to be heard, you hold your ground. While others seek validation through words, you seek clarity through presence. And in that contrast, people begin to notice something different, something stable, something real. Not flash, not noise, but substance. The kind of strength that doesn't need to announce itself to be felt. It's not that the Stoic looks down on those who boast. He understands them. He sees their need for attention, their fear of being unseen, but he also refuses to join the cycle. Because self-mastery means not only controlling what you say, but why you feel the need to say it. When your actions are aligned, when your values are clear, and when your purpose is internal, you realize that most noise is unnecessary. Silence becomes not just a tool, but a statement. So next time you're in the presence of ego, stay grounded. Let others speak. Let them shine if they must. You don't need to compete in their theater. Because true power doesn't need a spotlight. It radiates quietly. And the Stoic knows. What you don't say often speaks louder than what you do. Silence here isn't just restraint. It's confidence without commentary, strength without spectacle, wisdom without noise. 3. When you're angry. Anger is loud. It demands. It tightens your chest, speeds your breath, clouds your judgment, and begs you to speak. Not thoughtfully, but immediately. And that's the trap. The Stoics knew that anger isn't strength. It's a momentary madness that turns reason into impulse. Epictetus warned, when you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. Then you will forget your anger. Because in anger, the first thing we lose is perspective. And that's why the Stoic chooses silence. When you're angry, saying nothing is not weakness. It's control. It's the decision to protect your future self from the regret of words said in heat. Because once spoken, they cannot be taken back. Silence in that moment becomes a shield, a boundary between emotion and reaction. You're not avoiding the issue. You're preventing destruction. You're giving wisdom the space to re-enter before the situation spirals into something you didn't intend. Anger demands a voice, but the Stoic doesn't obey that demand. He pauses. He breathes. He lets the feeling pass through without letting it take over. Because emotions are like weather. They arrive, they swirl, they leave. But if you act while the storm is peaking, you build from chaos. And chaos never builds anything that lasts. Silence instead allows the storm to settle. And when it does, reason returns. This silence doesn't mean repression, it means timing. The Stoic doesn't bottle up his frustration, he channels it into action, into reflection, into clarity. If something truly needs to be addressed, it will be done with calm words and a steady hand, not with shouting and impulsive retaliation. The Stoic waits, not to avoid conflict, but to master it. Because mastery is not about dominating others, it's about governing yourself. Think of the power in this. Someone provokes you, pushes you, tries to ignite your anger, and you say nothing. Not because you're weak, but because you've already won. Your peace remains intact, your dignity untouched. your energy saved for something worthy of it. That's not passivity, that's discipline. And in a world that glorifies reaction, your silence will feel like thunder. So the next time anger rises in your chest, don't rush to speak. Hold the space. Let silence absorb the first wave. Let it protect what matters: your reputation, your relationships, your mind. Because the man who can remain silent in anger is not suppressing power. He's harnessing it. That's Stoicism in practice. Restraint over reaction, principle over impulse, and silence is the highest form of strength. 4. When facing false rumors. When lies spread behind your back, when your name is twisted in whispers you didn't start, when people speak with confidence about things they do not understand, the instinct is to defend, to chase the rumor, to correct every false word. But the Stoic sees that impulse for what it is, a trap. Because trying to fight every rumor is like trying to hold back the ocean with your hands. The more you react, the more attention you give to the lie. And the more attention you give it, the more real it becomes in the minds of others. That's why the Stoic chooses silence. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to be indifferent to the words of others when they had no bearing on his inner virtue. Epictetus taught that reputation is not within our control, only our character is. And that's the point. When false rumors arise, the Stoic doesn't crumble. He doesn't chase approval or beg for clarity. He anchors himself in what he knows to be true. He lets time and truth do their work, because they always do. You don't owe anyone an explanation when your integrity is intact. You don't need to defend yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. The Stoic knows that silence in the face of slander is not retreat. It's a statement. It says, I am not shaken by your noise. I know who I am, and that is enough. And over time, that quiet confidence becomes undeniable, not because you argued louder, but because you lived better. False rumors thrive on reaction. They need your outrage to stay alive. But when you stay silent, when you continue walking with dignity, when your behavior remains consistent with your values, you deprive the rumor of its oxygen. You take away its power, and eventually the people who matter will see what's real. The rest never did. This doesn't mean you never speak the truth. It means you choose your moment, your words, and your reasons with precision. Not out of panic, not out of fear, but from principle. Because truth doesn't always need to shout. Sometimes it just needs to stand still. And the Stoic knows that standing still in storms is often more powerful than running from them. So when your name is dragged through rumor, hold your ground. Live so clearly that even the lies collapse under the weight of your consistency. Don't correct every whisper. Don't answer every voice. Be silent, not because you're weak, but because you're stronger than slander. Let your life speak. Let your actions defend you. Because in the end, character is louder than rumor, and silence, when chosen wisely, is the clearest proof of unshakable self-respect. 5. In times of grief and loss. There are moments in life when words no longer work. When something is taken from you, someone you love, a dream that mattered, a certainty that crumbles, and the noise of the world keeps moving, but your soul stands still. In these moments, people often rush to speak, to explain, to analyze, to fill the silence with logic or comfort. But the Stoic understands that grief does not need to be solved. It needs to be honored. And often, the most powerful way to honor it is through silence. Marcus Aurelius, who buried children, lost friends, and carried the burden of empire, didn't try to escape grief. He walked with it. He reflected. He endured. And in his writings, there is a profound stillness, a recognition that some pain is too sacred for noise. The Stoic doesn't run from sorrow, nor does he dramatize it. He allows it, not forever, but fully, because silence gives space. It gives shape to what cannot be expressed. It turns grief into something transformative, not performative. In times of loss, talking too quickly can cheapen the weight of what's been lost. Trying to comfort yourself or others with cliches, explanations, or forced optimism often creates more distance than healing. But silence, shared or solitary, creates room for truth. It allows tears to rise without needing to be justified. It allows reflection to unfold without interruption. It allows pain to teach rather than just wound. The Stoic knows that grief is not weakness, it's a sign that something mattered deeply. And when that something is gone, a piece of you aches in the quiet. That ache does not mean you are broken. It means you loved, you cared, you invested your heart. And the response to that is not denial, not distraction, but respectful stillness. You sit with it. You breathe through it. You don't need to explain it to anyone. In silence, something unexpected happens. Understanding grows, not the kind that fixes everything, but the kind that helps you carry it better. You realize that grief is not the enemy of Stoicism. It's a test of it. It asks, can you remain grounded when life shifts beneath your feet? Can you stay present when your heart breaks? Can you let go without losing yourself? So when grief visits you, don't rush to escape it. Don't rush to speak. Just be, with your breath, with your memories, with the space that silence gives. Because in that silence, healing begins, not through noise, but through depth. The Stoic grieves not less than others, but more wisely. He walks through the valley of loss, not by pretending it doesn't hurt, but by refusing to run from its truth. And in that quiet strength, he finds a peace deeper than words could ever offer. 6. In the face of ignorance. Ignorance isn't always loud, but it's always draining when engaged carelessly. You'll encounter people who speak without understanding, argue without listening, and resist every ounce of reason. Not because they're curious, but because they're convinced. The Stoic knows that not every battle is worth fighting, and not every voice deserves an answer. That's why in the presence of deep ignorance, silence becomes strategy. It becomes strength. Epictetus taught, it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. And in that one line lies the reason the Stoic often says nothing. Because when a person's mind is closed, your wisdom becomes wasted breath. No insight can land. No truth can be heard. You're not in a conversation. You're in a performance, and you've been cast in a role you never agreed to play. The Stoic walks away from that stage, not with anger, not with ego, but with clarity. To argue with ignorance is to give it more life. You validate its noise. You legitimize its distortion. And most dangerously, you lose your own peace. The Stoic guards his peace the way a warrior guards his weapon. He doesn't hand it over in petty debates. He doesn't exhaust his spirit trying to fix what doesn't want to be fixed. Instead, he watches. He listens. He sees clearly, and then chooses silence, not out of fear, but out of discipline. This isn't arrogance. It's awareness. You speak when your words can build something. You stay quiet when your words would only feed destruction. You know the difference. And you honor that difference even when your pride tempts you to prove yourself. Because the Stoic doesn't need to win the argument, he needs to win himself, to stay centered, grounded, unshaken. Sometimes silence is the greatest teacher. It reflects the ignorance back to itself. It reveals the noise for what it is. And in that space, occasionally, the other person sees it, learns from it. But that's not your job to ensure. Your job is to preserve your clarity, to protect your energy, and to spend your voice where it matters, where truth has a chance to land. So when you find yourself face to face with ignorance, don't waste your flame trying to light a mind that's been sealed shut. Let your stillness speak. Let your silence remind you. Not everything deserves your energy. Not every voice deserves your answer. And sometimes the highest form of intelligence is simply the decision to say nothing at all. 7. When dealing with rumors. Rumors thrive on attention. They grow in shadows, fed by whispers and reactions, spreading faster the more you try to chase them down and correct every lie. And the instinct to respond, to clear your name, to set the record straight, especially when the rumor touches something personal, is strong. But the Stoic sees that this instinct, if obeyed without discipline, does more harm than good, because to engage every rumor is to dignify it. To fight every voice in the dark is to bring your light where it's least respected. That's why the Stoic chooses silence, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself often that other people's thoughts are not his concern. He understood that reputation, once handed over to public opinion, lives beyond our reach. The Stoic doesn't live for approval, he lives for alignment. Alignment with virtue, alignment with character, and when those things are intact, no rumor has the power to truly define him. His silence is not weakness, it's a deliberate statement. I am not moved by the noise. Responding to gossip may offer momentary relief, but it rarely solves the deeper issue. It invites more speculation. It gives life to stories that would otherwise fade. But when you remain consistent, when your actions stay grounded, your values stay visible, and your energy stays calm, you become undeniable. The people who matter will see the truth through the fog. The rest were never your audience to begin with. Silence in the face of rumors isn't surrender. It's a test of inner stability. It requires you to trust in something greater than control. You trust in time, in clarity, in the slow but certain power of truth. You understand that your reputation is built not in statements, but in choices, not in rebuttals, but in living well, and that over time becomes your loudest response. This doesn't mean you avoid every conversation or let lies run unchecked forever. It means you choose your battles. You ask, is this response coming from clarity or from fear? Is this reply rooted in strength or in the need to be seen as right? And if the answer is fear, you return to stillness, because the Stoic knows that real strength doesn't need to be loud. It needs to be consistent. So let the rumors run, let the noise rise, let the small minds speak, and you, stay grounded, stay silent. Let your daily actions tell the story your words never need to, because in the end, the truth doesn't need you to shout, it needs you to live. And nothing silences a lie more powerfully than the quiet presence of someone who refuses to be shaken by it. 8. When confronted with injustice. Injustice burns. Whether it's a betrayal, a false accusation, a system rigged against fairness, or watching someone suffer for no good reason, it shakes something deep within you. The natural response is rage, to lash out, to confront, to demand immediate action. But the Stoic teaches a different response, not silence from weakness, but silence from wisdom. Because when injustice strikes, the first voice that rises is often emotion. And emotion, ungoverned, rarely produces justice. The Stoic pauses. He feels, but he doesn't react. He chooses silence, not to surrender, but to prepare. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much more harmful are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?" That insight speaks directly to injustice. The injustice may be real, but the way you respond can either elevate your strength or deepen the harm. Stoic silence in the face of injustice doesn't mean acceptance. It means discipline. It's the quiet before principled action. It's the pause that prevents you from becoming the very thing you're standing against. When you react instantly to injustice, you risk being pulled into its emotional gravity. You fight fire with fire. But the Stoic doesn't burn. He builds. He stays still long enough to see clearly. He allows silence to absorb the first storm, and then, when his mind is steady, he speaks. He acts. Not with fury, but with focus. Not to feed ego, but to serve principle. Silence here is strategic. It allows you to assess, to ask, what part of this is in my control? What action would reflect my values, not just my anger? The Stoic doesn't let injustice dictate his behavior. He uses it as a mirror to reveal what must be done and how it must be done. He doesn't retreat. He responds with precision. This kind of silence builds credibility. It shows others that you're not reacting from wounded pride, but from conviction. And when you finally speak, when you finally move, your actions carry weight because they're not rooted in panic. They're rooted in clarity. The Stoic fights injustice, but he does so in a way that doesn't sacrifice his own integrity. That's the difference. That's the discipline. So when injustice comes, and it will, don't confuse immediate silence with apathy. Don't mistake restraint for indifference. Let your silence be the stillness of the warrior before the strike. Let it be the calm before deliberate resistance. Because the Stoic knows, reacting without thinking is how injustice spreads. But responding with wisdom, that's how real change begins. Quietly, sharply, unshakably. 9. When insulted. An insult is an invitation to react, to defend, to lower yourself to the level of the attacker. It strikes at the ego, not the soul, and the first impulse is always the same. Respond. Prove them wrong. Match their tone. But the Stoic declines the invitation. He does not stoop. He stands still. Because he knows that silence in the face of insult is not cowardice. It is command. Epictetus said it best. If someone speaks badly of you and it is true, correct yourself. If it is false, laugh at it. That sentence holds the full philosophy of the Stoic response to insult. You don't need to yell. You don't need to explain. You certainly don't need to insult back. If the insult is true, fix it. If it's not, why bleed over words that don't describe you? Silence here is not avoidance. It's identity. It's the act of saying, I am not what you say I am. I am what I choose to be. That level of composure is not easy. It takes strength to let someone speak venom and respond with nothing but stillness. But that stillness doesn't mean you didn't feel it. It means you refuse to serve it. You refuse to let their chaos reach your center. When you respond to insult with silence, you remove the attacker's reward. They wanted your reaction. They wanted your energy. They wanted to pull you into a scene where they control the tone. But your silence breaks that script. It ends the game before it begins. It reminds them and yourself that your peace is not so easily stolen. The Stoic doesn't live to be liked or approved of. He lives in alignment with virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Insults may sting, but they cannot touch virtue. They cannot reach the parts of you that matter unless you let them in. And silence is your gatekeeper. It says, this moment is beneath response. My time and dignity are too valuable. Even more, silence after insult has a strange kind of strength that others notice. It commands respect. It leaves the attacker unsure. It radiates self-respect in a world that's addicted to retaliation. The Stoic teaches that true strength doesn't need to be loud. Sometimes the most powerful man in the room is the one who doesn't need to speak at all. So when someone insults you, breathe, feel it, but don't feed it. Let the words pass like wind over stone. You are not what others say. You are what you live, what you stand for, and what you remain silent about. Not all battles are worth fighting, and the battle for your peace, that's when you win by not entering at all. True strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's the silence that holds its ground when everything else is screaming. These 9 moments aren't about avoiding life. They're about mastering it, about knowing that not every fire needs your breath, and not every insult deserves your voice. Silence, when chosen with purpose, is not emptiness. It's presence. It's control. It's self-respect in motion. Marcus Aurelius didn't just write about silence. He lived it. In power, in pain, in conflict. And his wisdom reminds us, the less we need to react, the more we command our lives. Let your silence be a sign of discipline, not defeat. Let it protect your peace, reflect your strength, and remind you that your energy is sacred. If this episode spoke to something real inside you, subscribe to Stoic Reflections so you never miss a moment of clarity. Like this video if you're ready to protect your energy with wisdom, and comment below. Which of these 9 moments will you now face with powerful silence?